let's take a look at what developments have been going on since the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. For those who don't remember, on August 8th, out of nowhere, the FBI raided Trump's Mar-a-Lago home, which is also doubling as a golf club, I think it is, or
he likes his golf, does Trump?
Or some kind of fancy community club of some kind, with the intention of trying to seize any documents that he may have been keeping away from the National Archive, which at the time the FBI and left-wing pundits were talking about it being the potential of him having American nuclear secrets held at the house, and we'll see how that's developed from there. So before I go further, we had recently what was a premium video but has now been made free for for anybody to watch. It was premium very briefly, where Carl did an interview with Sebastian Gorka, who was a former advisor and deputy assistant in Trump's White House in 2017, giving his take on the situation and the war for America's soul, as he's got a book coming out very soon called The War for America's Soul. And I was just listening to this before we came on. Very interesting interview. Seb, obviously having been in the White House, can give a little bit of extra insight to the proceedings that go on in there that other people may not be able to. So well worth a listen if you get the opportunity. So let's move on. So one of the first things that people wanted to see after this FBI raid seemingly came out of nowhere, to the point where even Joe Biden himself, who you would imagine is in close contact with the FBI at all times on stuff that involves the former president, Joe Biden himself said that he had no idea that it was going on, wasn't made aware of it in time, and he had zero to do with it, in his own words. So people were interested to see what reasoning was given for the search warrant that a Judge Bruce Reinhart, eventually gave to the FBI to allow them to make this raid on the Mar-a-Lago residence. And they did eventually release the affidavit that was supplied by the FBI to this judge to see what it was. And if we just scroll through, we can see that it may not actually be the most comprehensive thing for people who want to understand why it went on, because the further we went down, obviously we've got all this information here, oh, and then there's these gigantic blocks of black where they've just blocked out and redacted entire pages.
I mean, who'd have thought that they're covering their tracks?
I know, what a surprise. I find it shocking that they're allowed to do this in such a blatant manner. I mean, if you're going to release the affidavit, there's no point in doing so. I understand that depending on what information was used to justify the search warrant, it might mean that there could be some sensitive information. If that's the case and you don't want to release it yet, just don't release it.
I'm not sure if it is... I'm spoiling something coming up.
No, go on.
I remember seeing an extract from one of these documents that directly quoted Joe Biden as being the one that orchestrated this.
Yes, John shared that to us, but I couldn't find the actual original document that it was taken from, so I didn't include it in here. But there was one document, if you've got access to it, please share it in the comments below, that was saying that they had got direct word of it from Joe Biden, which, if that is
certainly
true...
believe it, because...
Yeah, I don't understand how anybody's supposed to believe that the sitting president of the United States has no idea that a raid on the home of the former president just before him is about to go on.
And his main political opponent. And of course, if that is true, which I believe it is, then that means that he's directly used his power as president to interfere in an election, really.
And if you actually read through a few of these, because this is just an extra document I found, I think is the search warrant itself, where they talk about the reason given for allowing the search warrant and going ahead with this affidavit, was that in January, during the impeachment, the National Archives requested information from Donald Trump. He gave it to them. And then in June, the same thing happened again, because we've got the January 6th, another such hearings going on. And so he handed more information over to them. And the National Archives say that in that information that they received, all the documents that he gave back to them, there was classified information, okay, which he had given back. And that then justified raiding his property to go and see if he had any more in there. It seems like pretty shaky reasoning to me.
You would have thought that they would have said, do you have any more of this stuff? Can you give it back? You've been cooperative so far. You've given us no indication that you're not cooperative. Can you please provide us with any other documents you have? They didn't need to raid his Mar-a-Lago home. It's obviously a political stunt. It's a deliberate thing.
Of course it is. And we know that the FBI is a obviously partisan organisation after Mark Zuckerberg recently came out saying that they'd approached him directly to try and censor the Hunter Biden laptop story.
I think it's a form of agitprop, isn't it? Where they're trying to wind up Republicans to do something stupid. Apparently, according to John, Trump has already changed the lock for them to give them access last year.
Very interesting. So they could have just asked him.
Yes.
Reasonably.
But it's obviously trying to rile up Republicans because this is a form of injustice going on here. And they're trying to make them do something stupid so the Democrats can demonise them, say, look, see, we told you they're enemies of the people.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is if we carry on, there was actually, supposedly, classified documents found at his Mar-a-Lago club. And I've got this USA Today article going through it. So they just recap a bit of the information here. They searched Mar-a-Lago, August 8th, for documents. Trump has since, because they were trying to find evidence that he violated the Espionage Act or had an obstruction of justice in trying to withhold information from them. Trump has filed for a lawsuit for a special master to review the documents to possibly block the Justice Department from documents related to communications from his lawyers or from administration aides. And once again, Biden says that he's just got no idea about any of this, doesn't have any involvement in this whatsoever, washes his hands of it. And further down in the article, it says, U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon released a list of documents that were found at his at Mar-a-Lago, they released it publicly whilst deciding whether to appoint a special master and potentially limit the Justice Department's access to these documents. In a status report filed with the document list, prosecutors described the inquiry as an active criminal investigation. I mean, there's already 4 of those going on against Trump now, so this is just another one to add to the pile where he's probably going to be cleared of all charges, as seems to happen every single time.
What people tend to miss about this as well is it sounds really bad that he's got classified documents now. He's no longer president, but the president has a privilege known as the President's Daily Briefing, where the intelligence agencies write this briefing for former presidents who, there's no time limit on this. As long as they're alive, they can get these daily intelligence briefings, which gives them top secret information about what's going on. And the funny thing is that Joe Biden, in February of 2021, tried to remove, and I think successfully removed, Trump's ability to receive those, although ordinarily he would receive intelligence from the US state.
Well,
so the fact that he's actually received far less than former US presidents is kind of a bit...
Well, everything is stacked against Trump, very clearly. But it's also the fact that even in the information that we get here, that we don't know exactly what is in these documents. I mean, if they're confidential, if they're classified, that's completely understandable. But they gave the more detailed list of documents seized from him. It carries on saying the federal judge overseeing blah, blah, blah. Aside from classified materials, the list appears to show the chaotic nature in which thousands of documents were kept. Here's what was recovered in the search. Overall, the list described 31 confidential documents, 54 secret documents, and 11 top secret. 48 empty folders with classified banners, which is what a lot of people were focusing on. 42 folders marked return to staff / staff secretary / military aid, and more than 11,000 government documents or pictures without classification markings, and then nearly 1,673 magazines, newspapers and press clippings, 19 articles of clothing or gift items, and 33 books. And for most people on the street, including myself, a lot of this is completely meaningless without knowing exactly what was in those confidential documents.
I mean, they could have been confidential because Trump made them that way. They could have not been confidential before. They could have been newly created.
Yeah, he might have just got a receipt for his McDonald's and just stamped confidential or something on that.
Well, you don't want people to know which McDonald's you go to as the president. Although I doubt he's the one going and getting it personally.
Of course, but yeah, unless we know the sorts of information that's held within these, it's very difficult to understand how serious this should be. I've heard talk from people like Seb Gorka talking about how when you're in the White House, even just having, say, just your ID card, a photocopy of an ID card can be banned with classified or secret or even top secret. So it's very up in the air what each of these things could potentially be. And if the information he was holding was so terrible, so so against the nation, so set to be used to destroy the nation, why did he sit on it for 18 months? And
he's done nothing with it. Yeah, surely.
And why would he also keep it so haphazardly among clothes, in random boxes with newspaper clippings and just random books as well?
Well, there's also the fact that if you had top secret documents and you didn't want people to find out, you wouldn't keep them just haphazardly in your house. It kind of indicates that he didn't see any problem with it.
No, of course not. And there's other arguments that we can carry on to make in just a moment. But once again, here's the photographs that they released of the documents in the next article. Yeah, if you scroll down a bit, we can see this down here. people were kind of making fun of this, so I'll just hit try later. Here we go. There should be a picture around here. There we go. People were kind of mocking this by saying, if it's so top secret, why are you taking photos and releasing them to the public of it? Obviously, they've blocked some of the information, but optically speaking,
pieces of paper,
it doesn't look that great. And then, obviously, a lot of the comparisons that people are making currently are towards the Hillary Clinton email scandals.
A fair comparison, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely fair comparison, because Hillary Clinton was investigated and just completely acquitted. In fact, a lot of the investigation seemed to just be thrown out of the window in blatantly partisan reasons. So Hillary Clinton decided to come out and clear her own name and set the record straight. I can't believe we're still talking about this, but my emails, as Trump's problems continue to mount, the right is trying to make this about me again. There's even a Clinton standard. The fact is that I had 0 emails that were classified. And just scroll down a little bit so you can see a bit more of the thread, please, John. That's right, 0. Comey admitted he was wrong after he claimed I had classified emails. I'm just so virtuous. I never did anything wrong. The problem being, of course, that as with most stuff that comes out of Hillary Clinton's mouth, this is complete BS. This is a lie.
Are you expecting people to take her at her word?
And we can find that it's a lie even from looking at Guardian articles from a few years ago when the investigation into her was concluded, where it says, the investigation finds no deliberate mishandling, very choice words that they've picked there.
Very different to what Hillary was claiming, isn't it?
Yes, and the State Department, however, did find violations by 38 current and former department officials, some of whom may face disciplinary action. So for those who don't remember, Hillary Clinton was being investigated because she had a private email that she was using on a private server that was receiving White House information, which is obviously not a particularly secure way of storing potentially classified documents, which we know are going to be classified and very important at that time when they're receiving them, because they're being emailed about the place. It's not going to be a potential of, say, the president declassifying them. They're going to be very immediately relevant to anything that's going on. But Hillary Clinton managed to just get a free pass on this, because as it says here, they did find the 38 violations by 38 people. Investigators determined those 38 people were culpable in 91 cases of sending classified information that ended up in Clinton's personal email. Well, there you go. So Clinton had classified information improperly stored, but she gets a free pass because apparently it's the fault of the people sending her these emails. And yes, they probably shouldn't have sent any classified information to an obviously private email address, but it's interesting that she just got off scot-free with this, almost as if there's blatant partisan bias within these organisations.
It's also one of those things where it's pretty common sense that you don't use just a regular email to send classified stuff about. I mean, even if it wasn't a rule, you would surely want to follow that anyway, just out of good practice.
Yeah, so further on it just says they got 33,000 emails overall, they'd combed through all of them, and then the department said that it found a total of 588 violations involving information then or now deemed to be classified, but could not assign fault in 497 cases for some reason. So what I'm getting from this is that if Trump wanted to just get off scot-free on this, like Hillary did, all he has to do is say, I didn't bring that information to Mar-a-Lago personally, my assistant posted it to me. And I was just holding it.
He's not going to throw someone under the bus, is he?
Yeah, he's not going to throw someone on the bus, but the Clintons have something of a storied history of throwing people under the bus, their associates.
As well as many other places and other means of death as well.
throwing them off a bridge, out of planes.
Throwing them into bullets.
Yes, potentially. But then you look at the other arguments made by people on Trump's side in regards to this. For instance, on Fox News recently, there was somebody making a statement from Trump's office saying, as we can all relate to, everyone ends up having to bring home their work from time to time. And Trump had a standing order in the White House that documents removed from the Oval Office taken to the residence, that being Mar-a-Lago, were deemed to be declassified, which, as a standing order from the president, sounds pretty fair. Some are disputing whether the president can do that or not, but a lot of the president's actual power seems to be very inference-based from the Constitution, because the one thing that people point to say that the president has this kind of power is the first sentence of Article 2 of the US Constitution, which just says, "The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America," which some people take to mean that he has the right to declassify any information that he wants, to be able to hold standing orders like that to declassify. But this is where it comes into, say, constitutional lawyers having to try and interpret this in one way or the other. And obviously their interpretations are going to be biased.
Well, I would say there's no clear interpretation there.
Yeah.
Either way, really.
Either way, really, I don't see why the president shouldn't, being the executive, have the right to say this information is declassified.
I'm pretty sure if you've got the right to declare war, you should be able to have the right to declare what information can be heard. I think
Obviously,
the right to declare war is more significant.
Obviously, with that, you want a president who's going to be competent enough to not to just declassify, say, the nuclear codes that you've got, but at the same time, what do you expect when you've got democracy? It's all kind of up in the air depending on who people vote for.
Please tell us about the aliens in Area 51. That would be great.
Yes, and if because we're English as well, if we are getting anything wrong here relating to the way the White House operates and you know any better, please just leave it in the comments below. I'd be very interested to be corrected if we're getting any of this wrong, and I'm sure we are at some point. So, former Trump officials are also suggesting that he might have taken classified documents as leverage for future political aspirations. But once again, this raises the question, why wouldn't he have done anything with them for 18 months? I mean, Trump seems like a pretty plain guy for the most part. He seems like a guy, he's not a Machiavellian. He says what he means and means what he says. That's the impression that I have got from Trump, and when you watch interviews with people like Seb Gorka, that's the impression that he got from Trump, and he worked directly with him. So Trump is not this Machiavellian schemer pulling loads of strings behind the scenes. He's very much blunt with the way that he does things. So I don't see this as within his character as far as I understand it. And the only reason that I can think he would keep a hold of this material would be because of the constant political attacks he's received ever since he lost the White House. And given the fact that he's been impeached, twice?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
He might want to have a little bit of information at hand that could help him, but that's my interpretation of this. And then there's also just the fact that Trump authorized, as he was leaving the White House, the declassification of all of the Russia collusion information. So it could be the possibility that he just took a lot of that stuff back home with him after he declassified it, because he knew that was going to be coming up in the impeachment.
Like a souvenir.
Again. Yeah, potentially. I'd frame it personally.
Yes, so would I.
Any of the documents. And then there's the fact that the Department of Justice, the DOJ in general, are also saying that they're likely to wait past midterms to reveal any Trump charges, which is very interesting.
Well, I don't think they want to necessarily either interfere. That will be their formal reason anyway. They don't want to interfere in the elections. However, by having the looming charges over Trump and not acquitting him before the elections are over, which they almost certainly will, what they're doing is they're giving people some doubt about his character.
And therefore the character of any of the Republican candidates for the midterms that he has endorsed, and he has endorsed quite a few of them. So this does seem to be a tactic purely for going against the Republicans optically in the midterms, because they know if they went ahead with the case and it blew up in their faces, as it probably will, then it would look really bad for them and probably lead to more Republicans getting voted in than would otherwise. But once again, we could be wrong in a lot of this. I don't want to just be a TDS on the other side. I don't want to just be overtly defending Trump for no reason other than I like him. You know, he is now a politician at the end of the day, and all politicians are fallible and basically evil.
Did you just indirectly call Trump evil there?
I believe all politicians are basically evil.
Okay.
Other than Enoch Powell. He seems like a nice guy.
The one good one.
The one good one. Yes, but the Washington Post have also reported recently, first of all, Trump's lawsuit to get a special investigator, or whatever the term is, to be able to look over all of the documents before it goes ahead to any trial has been passed. So there is someone working on Trump's behalf now, going through all of these documents that have been seized from him to see if there's any that I think refer to attorney-client privilege that won't be able to get used in any case that they bring against him. But they also say in the Washington Post here that material on foreign nations' nuclear capabilities were seized at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. And notice how different that is than him having classified nuclear American secrets held at his residence. But they say a document describing a foreign government's military defences, including its nuclear capabilities, was found by FBI agents who searched former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence and private club last month, according to people familiar with the matter.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very interesting, because when I hear that, I think so unsubstantiated, as far as I'm concerned. They didn't even say an unnamed source within Trump's, I don't know, immediate circle or anything like that, or within the FBI. It's just,
it came to the FBI in a dream.
Yes, source, I made it up. Thank you very much. But it underscores concerns among US intelligence officials about classified material stashed in the Florida property. Now, this is the only actual bit of information that we've got regarding contents of these classified and top secret stuff. And if it is true that he was holding this information at his residence, yes, I would say that's very irresponsible of him. Because the security at a private residence is going to probably be a lot more lenient than it would be at, say, the National Archives or wherever the government is going to be holding this information. But at the same time, when the information is coming from people familiar with the matter, which could mean Bob down the road, who reads the newspapers every so often telling you something, I don't buy it. Realistically speaking, I don't buy it. Until the case goes ahead, we'll have to see what happens, and I don't want to just give Trump a free pass if he has done anything wrong, but it's very, very hard to see all of this information leading to anything just a blatant partisan attack against Trump in time for the midterms to try and boost Democratic support.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the interviews we do, this one between Carl and Sebastian Gorka on the Wall for America's Soul. You'll find out what else Carl's putting out. You can follow him on Getter at Carl Benjamin on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.